Spain and the regional government of Spain, the Junta de Andalucía, the city councils of Seville and Malaga, and the Royal Automobile Club of Spain, together with the regional government, is organizing this first edition of the New Mobility Order Forum. First of all, we would like to thank Ernst & Young and CEPSA, which are the first partners for this first edition of the Mo Forum, and they have been so gracious as to participate in this first edition as partners. So our congratulations to them and our gratitude for their efforts. Over the next 2 days, we will be hearing from authorities, high representatives from the automobile industry, public opinion, users, as well as consumers, and looking at the short, medium, and long-term goals for advancements in a new mobility order that is pragmatic, realistic, in order to come up with a more sustainable and more efficient new mobility order. This is a time of change, of huge adaptations in the world of mobility and transport, and we are fully immersed in that dynamic so that there are the best of the new technologies made available for mobility, and of course that we need to start using as of now to reach the sustainability goals that everyone is necessarily preaching around the globe, to make our planet much more inhabitable. So in this new mobility forum, we are going to have a number of panel speakers throughout the day, but we're going to start with the analysis and debate of some of the challenges and objectives of the 2030-2050 agenda is going to have in the EU zero emissions agenda, and how this is going to affect the automobile and automotive industry, as well as final end users. In this first edition of Mo Forum, I think there is no better way than the Mayor of Seville, Mr. Antonio Muñoz, to welcome everyone here and to inaugurate this first edition. So Mr. Antonio Muñoz, Mayor of Seville, a round of applause. Many thanks. You have the floor. Many thanks for your kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Seville. It is truly a pleasure to welcome you to our city, to this convention center, FIBES, so that we can initiate some of the important debates that will be undertaken over the next 2 days. And many of the challenges for sustainable mobility will be taken up during these debates. It's a pleasure to share this venue with the regional premier, Juanma Moreno, the Special Commissioner for Transport, Mobility and Urban Agenda of the Government of Spain, and other authorities. In any convention of this type, I think it is extremely important for us to remember that cooperation is the key word here. We're all working in times of tremendous uncertainty, and so, as you all are very full aware, Seville is now going to become the epicenter for these debates on sustainability and cooperation, and we are absolutely full of pride and satisfaction that Seville has been chosen to host this first edition of Mo Forum. And this is, of course, important at a time, the economic situation. We had a summit just taking place yesterday that had to do with defense and aerospace industries. We also have had a very successful meeting in that industry as well. We are continuously debating sustainable transport and mobility together with the City Council of Malaga, City Council of Seville are closely in communication on these topics. And anytime you are debating an issue as important in this, cooperation and dialogue are key. I would also like to manifest and state some of the things that we're doing here in Seville with regards to the challenges and making transportation more sustainable, more efficient, and making our city a friendlier city to live in. And And the formula is quite simple, actually, because if a city like Seville, where 45% of the emissions come from private vehicles or from motor vehicles, to decarbonize and make it a net zero emissions for the city of Seville means that, necessarily means that we have to change the source of fuel of those motor vehicles, and the motor engine systems have to be adapted to new forms of mobility. So we've taken this up not only in our municipal plan for mobility that is much more focused on sustainability now, as well as our strategic plan for the city. So Seville is extremely active together with other administrations in trying to reach these goals as soon as possible. And that means that we're looking at different systems of public transport being much more readily available to citizens, and important investments are being made in this area. We're working on extending our tram system. We're also having a new tram and bus system that is going to link our main train station in Santa Justa with some of the peripheral outlying areas of Seville. We're also going to put in place a new line of the metro system, Line 3, and allow me to make an incision here, and now that we have the regional premier and the regional minister here, I'd like to mention that we need to have the tender signed for these projects as soon, the public tenders for these signed as soon as possible, and I'm sure there is a commitment there. And I know it's a very complex process, but in order to gain the credibility of our citizens in these important infrastructure projects, we need to agree upon a ready solution and sign the protocols, and the public tenders need to be awarded. And this is going to drive forward many of our other projects, such as the new connection we are putting in place for a train to link the airport with our main train station, our major train station, Santa Justa. And of course, this is something that citizens are also demanding. Together with these projects and many of the other new systems for transport that are going to be debated over the new days, we have a huge amount of resources being devoted to new forms of transport, the active use of non-motor propelled vehicles such as electric bicycles and bike lanes, as well as other two-wheeled vehicles that do not use motors, fuel motor engines. So I think these are amongst some of the most important objectives, but we want to continue along these lines and preach by example. Today, over 70% of our vehicles that are used by the city council staff are low emissions vehicles, and we need to continue increasing those numbers. At the same time, we need to contribute on our side from the city council. We need to increase the number of electric vehicles in our fleet. We have 4 companies in the running for the installation of new charging stations for these electric vehicles, and we are going to be able to replace many of the fuel-propelled vehicles by electric vehicles. Fourthly, I'd like to mention that we are going to overhaul some of the public bus system vehicles, making them low-emission vehicles. And of course, the public has to realize that a lot of scientific research goes into that, and coming up with the right formula for a new way of public transport to be cleaner, more sustainable, more efficient, must rely upon scientific and technological developments. And I mustn't overlook, and I'm reaching the conclusion here with regards to our objectives, that is the metropolitan area. The transportation that takes place within the metropolitan area is oftentimes outside of the town center, that is, from the outlying towns and villages that surround Seville. And so we need to include those transportation systems in the metropolitan area strategic plan, and that is going to help us bring our emissions down and, of course, meet the goals that we have set out to accomplish. At the end of the day, we have on the horizon, as you can see, a wide array of projects that are already being financed or in the process of being put in place. And thanks to the cooperation and agreements that have been reached with the other branches of government in Andalusia, we are making major strides towards accomplishing our goals, not only in the transportation area, but of course in other areas such as infrastructure and services. We need to ensure that those are also available in order to have these sustainable systems up and running. So this is absolutely key to the future. We'll keep that in mind. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mayor, for welcoming us and inaugurating this first addition to the Convention Center here in Seville. And it is now time to hand the floor over to the next speaker. And of course, mobility has to be synonymous with liberty and freedom. And who better to talk about that is the representative from the Royal Automobile Club of Spain. And so I'm going to ask Carmelo Sanz, President and Organizing Committee Leader on the first edition of MO. Mr. Carmelo Sanz, please come up to the podium. You have the floor.
Gracias, Jesús.
Thank you, Jesus, and a very good morning to all of you. Regional Premier, dear Juanma, also the Town Councillor for Development, as well as the Regional Minister and Commissioner for Urban Mobility, Carmen, and all of the representatives from institutions and collaborating institutions for this event. It is truly an honor for us to collaborate with the Regional Government of Andalusia and the City Councils of Seville and Malaga in the organization of this first edition of MO Forum Andalusia, which I am fully convinced will mark a before and after in the debate on the future of sustainable and safe mobility that we are all striving for. As chairman of the organizing committee of MO Forum, I would like to share with you some brief reflections that explain some of the reasons why we are here today and why 3 years ago the regional government of Andalusia, together with the city councils of Seville and Malaga and RACE, agreed to collaborate and set up a permanent space for reflection on the major challenges facing the mobility sector, the transportation and automobile industries. We are fully aware that during the year, numerous events are held around the world on each of the 5 continents. Generally, these events are focused on the exhibition and development of new mobility systems, with special emphasis on eco-mobility, urban mobility, and electric transport. However, I think we're missing something. And what we're missing is an in-depth debate on the needs of consumers and on the real capacities of the industry, and not only the automotive industry, which has been a driving force in the economic and social development of our society over the past 100 years, as well as the energy sector, as well as the priorities guiding the administration and the regulators in defining a new regulatory framework that can be applied to achieve the climate neutrality objectives that we are all so eager to reach. So, an in-depth debate has to include the input of all of the stakeholders, and that's how MO was born, out of this need for an in-depth debate. And we want to summarize that in the subtitle that accompanies the logo of this event, the new mobility order in the world. We're fully
Convocar a
aware that
líderes
our goals are
internacionales de todos
ambitious
los
and
sectores
that to
implicados
convene
en la
international
definición de un nuevo
leaders
modelo de
from
movilidad
around the world and
que sin duda ha de
involve
ser
them
sostenible
in defining a
en su
new
ciclo
mobility
completo,
model is without a doubt
debe ser eficiente,
very
debe ser segura,
challenging
debe ser
indeed, because
innovadora, debe
this
ser
new
digital,
definition has to be fully
pero que también debe
sustainable,
ser
efficient,
posible
safe, innovative, and
para la
digital, but it
industria,
also has to be
accesible
reachable
para el
for the
usuario
industry,
y
accessible
comprometida
to
con los
users,
con
and
los
committed
objetivos de
to the
desarrollo
development
que se predican
goals that are
actualmente a
so
nivel mundial.
necessarily
Forum
proclaimed
Andalucía,
around the world.
cuya primera edición
So
celebramos
Move Forum
hoy,
is,
se
in
constituye
today's
así como un
first
punto de
edition,
encuentro
a meeting
entre
point
fabricantes,
for
legisladores
manufacturers,
y representantes de
legislators,
usuarios y
and
consumidores
representatives of end
para la
users and
definición de un
consumers
modelo de
in order to
transición
together
ordenado,
define an orderly,
pragmático
pragmatic,
y realista
and realistic
en la evolución
transition
a esa
model
movilidad del
for the
futuro, que en
evolution
muchos
towards
aspectos ya es
the
una
mobility of the
realidad. Este
future,
es
which
el
in many
factor
aspects is
principal y
already here.
diferenciador de este foro
And that is
versus todas estas
also
eventos
one
que
of the
tienen
objectives of
lugar
this
alrededor del
edition
mundo.
of this first edition
Durante
of
estas
MO,
dos jornadas
to see what we
tendremos
have
la
and what
ocasión de
we
exponer
want
ideas sobre
to
cómo debemos
strive
evolucionar
to
a ese
achieve. So
futuro
over the next 2
y
days,
además
we will have the opportunity
contrastarlas
to see
otra vez con las
different
posibilidades
ideas
reales de
on how
implementación
advancements can be
por
made
parte de la
towards the
industria
future
y del sector
and
de la
how
energía.
the automotive
Teniendo en
industry and
cuenta
energy
las
sectors
necesidades
can
que
contribute
no
to
debemos
this,
olvidar de
taking
los
into
usuarios
account,
cuyos
of
intereses
course,
deberían
the needs
primar
of
en todo
users
momento
whose interests
y
should
ser el
always
principal
prevail,
foco de atención
and they
de
should be
todas
the
las
main focus of
políticas y
attention
estrategias que se
and taken
propongan
into
para que la
account
movilidad
when
siga
policies
siendo
and
un
strategies are
derecho al
proposed
alcance
and
de
ensure
todos
that
los
mobility
ciudadanos.
remains a right available
Aspiramos
to
finalmente
all
a ser capaces de
citizens.
trasladar al usuario y a la opinión
We
pública
hope to
una
be
idea
able
más
to
clara
provide to
respecto a
users
todas
and the
estas
public opinion a
cuestiones
clearer
mediante
idea
la
of all these
elaboración
issues through
de
the preparation
unas
of a
conclusiones
statement
y una
or
declaración final
a
de
final
este foro,
declaration, if you will,
cuyo contenido
the content of which we will
adelantaremos
present
al
at the
finalizar la
end
jornada
of
mañana viernes
tomorrow's
y que
session,
confiamos
tomorrow
sea de
Friday,
verdadera utilidad
and
para
we
todos los
trust that
agentes
this
aquí
declaration will be of
implicados en la
real use to
definición
all
del
of the
futuro de la
stakeholders
movilidad.
involved in defining the future
Con
of
esta
mobility.
vocación de utilidad y
So this
servicio
vocation
es con la que
inspires
nace
the
este
creation
MOU
of
Forum
MO
de
Forum
Andalucía.
Andalucía.
Una vocación que también
This is a
inspiró a la
vocation
creación del Real Automóvil
that
Club de
also
España hace más
inspired
de 120
the
años
Royal Automobile Club
y
of
que nos
Spain
ha conducido a
120
ser la
years ago and has
institución de
led us to be the
referencia
leading
el
institution
usuario de la vía,
for
yo diría
motorists
hoy,
in our
más que
country.
del automovilista que fue su origen en nuestro país. Participando
The entire motor industry as a whole.
en las principales
We actively
organizaciones
participate in the main
internacionales
international
vinculadas con la
organizations
movilidad,
linked to
el
mobility,
transporte,
transport,
el
and
sector
the
del
automobile
automóvil, y muchas de las
industry,
cuales
many
os
of
encontráis
which are
representadas
represented
aquí
here
hoy al
today
máximo
at
nivel.
their very
Nuestro
highest level.
agradecimiento a
Our
todas ellas por
heartfelt
su
thanks
generosa
to all of
participación en
those
este
who
nuevo
have
Foro Andalucía,
provided
por su decidida
their
apuesta
input and
por este
participation
proyecto con el que
to make
pretendemos
this first edition of
identificar
MO Forum Andalusia a
soluciones
success,
reales
and
a los
especially
grandes
for their
retos
firm
que se
commitment to
plantean
this
para la
project.
movilidad en
And
los
we've
próximos 30 años.
obviously hope
Gracias
to
también,
continue
como no
in
puede
the
ser de
next,
otra manera, a
in the
CEPSA
coming years.
y Ernst &
I would
Young
like to thank
y a
Ernst
todas las
Young,
empresas que
CEPSA,
habéis
and all of the
colaborado
other
para que este
companies,
Foro Andalucía
institutions, and entities
2022
that have
sea hoy una
so
realidad.
generously contributed to the
Quisiera
success
terminar
of today's event.
reiterando
I
mi
would like to
agradecimiento
end
a la
by
Junta de
reiterating
Andalucía,
my thanks
la
to the regional
persona
government of
de
Andalusia
su presidente,
in the person
Juanma
of
Moreno,
the
que
regional
a pesar
premier,
del COVID
Juanma
y
Moreno,
desde hace 3 años ha
who
impulsado
has so
y ha
generously
querido que esto tenga lugar hoy,
collaborated
y
with
también muy
us over the past
especialmente
3 years. And
al
very especially
equipo de
to
la
the
Secretaría
entire
General de Acción
team
Exterior,
at the General Secretariat
Unión
for
Europea
External
y
Action,
Cooperación
European Union
liderada
and
por
Cooperation,
Enric Milló.
led by
Gracias,
Enric Milló. Thank you,
así
Enric,
como a los
as well as
alcaldes y
to the
equipos de
mayors
los
and teams of the
ayuntamientos
city
de
councils
Sevilla
of
y
Seville and
Málaga, con
Malaga,
quienes, como decía,
with whom,
hemos
as I said,
trabajado
have been
duramente
working with
durante
us
estos 3
over the
años
last 3 years,
para que hoy
launching
podamos inaugurar este Foro
today
Andalucía.
this first edition of MO Forum
Presidente,
Andalusia.
nacemos con una ambición
Premier,
grandísima.
we are truly
Pretendemos que este
and
foro de debate
sincerely
sea
enthusiastic
permanente y se
and
convierta
committed
en el Davos
to
de
this
la
becoming
movilidad
the Davos of
sostenible y
mobility,
segura,
of sustainable
del futuro,
mobility
y
of
que
the
las
future,
conclusiones
and that
que de aquí
this
salgan
event
se
will be
conviertan
a
en la
landmark
agenda
event in the
de
future,
una
and it will be the
transición
beginning of a
ordenada y
transition, an
posible.
orderly and
Muchas
a
gracias.
reachable transition for a better future for all. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Carmelo Sanz,
Many thanks, Carmelo Sanz, for your kind words, and we also are very sure that this forum will become, as you say, a reference, a benchmark event for the future of mobility and transport, and of course the new age of sustainable fuels. So thank you, Carmelo. And who defines the framework for mobility in the future? Well, our legislators and our policymakers in the EU. And although Mr. Valdis Dombrovskis, who is Commissioner for Trade at the European Commission, is not here with us today, he has sent us a video with his introductory and welcoming words. So I'll ask the technicians to go ahead with the video. Thank you.
Parece que tenemos algún problema con el sonido
Sound, please. Thank you.
de la técnica. ¿Podemos solucionarlo? Bueno, no sé lo que el señor Dombrovskis quería comentarnos. No sé si cuando esté disponible.
It seems that we are having some sound problems with the video. Let's see if we can get the sound back.
¿No está? ¿Os parece que continuemos adelante y después vemos el vídeo, señor Dombrovskis?
Well, perhaps we can proceed with the video.
Honorable elected representatives, members of the Royal Automotive Club of Spain, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to contribute to this important event. The objectives of the MOL Forum are both ambitious and timely. Your discussions can have a positive influence on the future development of the automotive sector, not just in Spain, but across Europe. We all know that your industry is facing profound and rapid changes. I'm thinking in particular of changes in mobility patterns, decarbonization, and the rise of autonomous vehicles. All these developments present opportunities as well as challenges. It is up to you to make the most of them, and the European Commission is ready to assist you in this work. We believe that the best approach is to ensure a well-functioning global market. Already, the EU has the largest network of trade agreements, 46 deals with 78 partners. They connect us to a huge economic opportunity. Remember, 85% of global growth will happen outside our borders in the coming decade. Trade is also about building reliable and resilient supply chains to support the green and digital transitions. Therefore, in the coming year, the European Commission aims to sign deals with New Zealand, Chile, and Mexico, and we aim to advance ongoing negotiations with Australia, Indonesia, and India. In parallel, we are taking strong action to fully exploit the value from existing deals. The Chief Trade Enforcement Officer and his team are leading this work. Openness remains the key, because new technologies integrating electronics, chemistry, and artificial intelligence will develop more rapidly in an open, rules-based economy. So it is important that markets remain open and well-functioning. But we are also committed to making supply chains as diversified and resilient as possible. For example, reliable access to raw materials for battery production or microprocessors is essential. This is vital to ensure the long-term sustainability and competitiveness of the sector. We also seek to develop and adapt common standards to facilitate trade, as well as quick development of new technologies. And we need to ensure that all actors compete fairly in full respect of the global level playing field. To conclude, I am fully aware that the industry has faced many challenges in recent years. You remain an important pillar of the EU economy, for jobs, for innovation, and for exports. The auto industry provides jobs for 12.7 million Europeans. We are committed to leveraging the strengths of EU trade policy to support you as you adapt to changing world. So let me wish you a successful forum. I look forward to hearing the outcomes of your discussions. Thank you.
Bueno, señor Dombrovskis, nos ha hablado.
Well, we have heard from Commissioner Dombrovskis and some of the challenges facing mobility and new technologies in the EU. And he's talked about the production, the manufacture of new batteries, and of course they need to have longer shelf lives so that they are of greater utility for vehicles. And this is the opening speech that the Commissioner has sent us, and we are very grateful for that. Once having heard from the representatives from the different countries in the EU, obviously Spain has a task at hand in transport and mobility and its urban agenda. And I would like to ask the Commissioner for Transport, Mobility and Urban Agenda of the Government of Spain to come to the podium and give us some insight about what Spain is doing, how it's doing its part in its new mobility plan. Welcome, Carmen. You have the floor. Regional Prime Minister of Andalusia, the Chairman and President of RACE, and to all of the dignitaries and illustrious guests here today. Mobility is a key factor in our everyday lives, and the fact that we need to go from one place to another gives the freedom to choose where we live, where we work, where we carry out our everyday tasks. Things such as healthcare, education, and why not? It's also extremely useful when we want to enjoy our free time and carry out leisure activities. So the new technologies related to transport and mobility are increasingly focused on decarbonization, especially not only in the urban centers, but also in the peripheral outlying areas around large metropolitan areas, which is actually creating traffic jams, increasing levels of pollution and noise, and even making some of the rural areas emptier and void of populations. So it's so important to have a robust and strong transport system in place, and it has to be overhauled if it's going to become more sustainable. Each and every one of us that work in the transport industry are affected by this, and together it is our preeminent obligation to work together and become more resilient and innovative, not only to create a better mobility for the future, but also to fulfill our responsibilities in the face of future generations. As the Commissioner for Transport, Mobility and Urban Agenda, it is our duty to promote new models for transport and mobility, putting the social impact in the focal point of our actions. And of course, this is a paradigm shift, which is going to lead us as policymakers and legislators, anyone in the public sector, has to realize that there has to be an integrative and standardizing effect so that each and every citizen has the right for sustainable mobility to be within their reach. And this requires the effort of all of the administrations of our government. As you will recall, last year, in December of last year, that a year has already passed since the strategy for mobility was passed by the government. It's safe, sustainable, and it is deeply embedded in the lines of action for the 2030-2050 agenda. So for the next 10 years, we are going to be working in 3 areas. Safe transportation. Transportation without safety is absolutely unthinkable. The second S is sustainable, both environmentally and sustainable, and interconnectivity. Interconnectivity of means of transport. And this is going to define the way ahead. This is going to pave the way towards a transport and mobility model that is closer and more attainable for citizens to use, so that the private motor vehicle will be a part of the
Tenemos que poner
past.
y volver
We
a
have to
poner
go
al
back and
ciudadano
put
en el centro.
the citizen in the
Y esta
focal point of
estrategia
our
junto
actions,
al
and that
Plan de
only
Recuperación,
points
Transformación y
towards
Resiliencia
more
es lo que
sustainable
nos va a
means of
permitir, lo que
transport.
nos va a
And this is
posibilitar
going to allow
afrontar
us
todos los
to
retos.
face all of the
Retos
challenges
para
ahead of
tener
us,
una movilidad
challenges
de
for
todos,
a transport and
accesible y
mobility
universal.
model that is
Una
universal,
movilidad que de
affordable,
alguna manera
and available
también
to
se
all.
integre en el
It is
diseño de
also
las
integrated in the
políticas
design of policies
regionales,
that
de ciudades
are
o
made
de
at
pueblos.
local, regional,
Una
and
estrategia
national
cuyos
level.
objetivos
It has to be an
tienen que
overriding
contribuir
strategy
y que
in
van a
which
contribuir
everyone
a que la
at all
movilidad
levels of the administration
mejore la calidad
can
del aire.
contribute
¿Cómo?
towards cleaner
A través de
air,
lo que ya han comentado,
more sustainable mobility
entre otros el alcalde de
models,
Sevilla,
and as was mentioned by
definir
the
y
mayor of
delimitar unas
Seville,
zonas de bajas
defining
emisiones en las
areas
zonas
where
urbanas.
low emissions are a
Establecer
priority, such
una
as in the
política
town centers
de
of our
desarrollo del
metropolitan
vehículo
areas,
eléctrico.
using electric vehicles
Pero también
and
tenemos que tener
promoting
una
the use
movilidad
of
activa
other
y
types of
saludable,
mobility,
que mejore la
healthy
calidad de vida
ways
de los
of transport that
ciudadanos. Y eso cómo
improves
se hace,
the
promoviendo
lifestyles
que
and
la
the health of
sociedad
our citizens.
tenga
And that can only be
hábitos
done
sostenibles en
if
sus
we
decisiones
promote
de transporte.
sustainable and healthy
Es una
habits,
gran oportunidad
using
de
public transport,
transferir
using
del vehículo
non-motor
a la
vehicles,
bicicleta
using
o al
bicycles
andar.
or walking.
Si es que la
If
bicicleta
the
no les parece
bicycle
lo suficientemente
is not
atractiva a
your
muchos ciudadanos. Pero también tenemos que
vehicle of
tener,
choice.
perdón,
But
políticas
at
de
any
alguna manera
rate, our
y planificaciones
policies
urbanísticas
have to
que
be
integren este
centered
concepto de que el
around
transporte
that
colectivo
integral concept
se
of
prioriza frente al
collective
transporte
interests,
individual.
and that has to override any
importante
individual or
también
particular interest.
la
And
movilidad,
of
y
course,
como he dicho antes, en la
mobility
seguridad,
has to be
pero también en
based
la
on
resiliencia.
safety measures
La
and
movilidad tiene que ser de alguna manera basada en
levels
infraestructuras
of
resilientes para afrontar y
resiliency
enfrentarse
that are
a los
capable
retos del
of
cambio climático
fulfilling the
y
challenges
también, por no
and
decirlo,
goals of climate change,
a las crisis y
and
emergencias que,
of
por
course,
desgracia,
economic
hemos
and
vivido
health crises
hace
that
2
have
años.
affected us over the past
El-
2 to 3 years.
La movilidad también
So,
tiene que ser
in essence,
sostenible, pero no
transport
sostenible desde el
must
punto
be
de vista de la
sustainable, but
emisión
not
de
only
CO2
from
a la atmósfera,
the
sino
atmospheric
sostenible en
perspective, but
que
it
la
has to be
propia
sustainable in
innovación
the
tiene que
sense
desarrollar
that
formas
it has to
nuevas
be
de tecnologías nuevas
developed
que
in
sean
a new
combustibles
light,
alternativos. Y nos
using
parecerá una
alternative
locura
fuels.
cuando
And you
hablamos
may think
de
it's
combustibles
absolutely
bioenergéticos, de combustibles que van a utilizar
ludicrous to talk
césped
about
artificial o algas
bioenergy
para
fuels,
ser
using
combustible
algae,
en nuestros
using
vehículos.
cut
También
grass
nos parecía
to
impensable que hubiera
produce fuel, or
aparatos,
using
pilotos que volaran por nuestros espacios
autonomous
aéreos. Y ahora
vehicles
es una
without a
realidad
driver.
tangible todos los
These are
días.
things that are happening
También
every
tiene que ser
day
una-
that
una,
are becoming a
movilidad
reality as we
compartida
speak.
y conectada.
So we have to share
Compartida porque tenemos que
ideas,
pasar de
share
esa movilidad
technologies,
de la
and share
propiedad
the
a una
idea
movilidad
that
por
transport
el
and
servicio.
mobility has to be
Una
at the
movilidad
service
y que tenga
of the needs
medidas
of all
flexibles
citizens,
a las empresas,
and it
sean
has to be
grandes o pequeñas,
flexible
para
enough so
poder
that anyone,
rentar,
large
o
or
alquilar
small,
de manera
companies,
diaria, semanal,
individuals or
mensual o
groups
anual.
can use these
Tiene que
systems on a
también
weekly,
tener,
monthly, or annual
de alguna
basis,
manera, una
so that this
conectividad entre todos
connectivity,
los
this
elementos de la
factor of
circulación.
connectivity
Esa conectividad,
must
las
always be
nuevas
present.
tecnologías,
And new
el
technologies are
Internet de
now
las
allowing
cosas
us to
nos
use
va a posibilitar
Internet of Things
poderlo hacer.
so that we can
Y por último,
hire
también
transport
mejorar la
from a
experiencia del
distance
usuario.
virtually,
Porque
and
al
we
fin de la
can
postre,
use the Internet of Things
nosotros
to
estamos
our
aquí
advantage.
para
And that's one of the
hacer la
reasons
vida
why we're
más
here
fácil
today,
y más
so that
cómoda
our
a
days
los ciudadanos.
ahead are not
Por lo
only
tanto, la mejora de
safer,
la
more
experiencia
efficient,
del
more
usuario
comfortable,
es también
and
otro de
more
los
sustainable, but
objetivos.
of course,
Y eso se
the
cómo
mobility
se
of the future
consigue.
can
Se consigue
only
dándoles
be
informaciones
reached by
fiables,
using
sólidas y
the
en tiempo real.
reliable, real-time
eso,
information
la
that we have at our
implantación
disposal,
del 5G
and the
nos va a
implementation of
posibilitar que se
5G
pueda
connectivity
hacer
is
esa
going to
conectividad
help
entre
us
todos los elementos de la
make all of
circulación. Y
these
podremos,
factors
cuando salgamos de
converge,
nuestras
and so
casas,
that
saber
when
si
we
vamos a
leave
tener
home
una
in the
plaza de
morning, we
aparcamiento
know if we're going to have a parking
en
space
algún
available
sitio, porque
at
el
our destination,
40%
because over
de lo que,
40% of the
se está,
vehicles that
en el
hit the
tráfico de
road
las
in the
ciudades,
morning
de
have
alguna manera,
absolutely no
está
idea where they're going to
obedeciendo a
park.
buscar
They are
aparcamiento.
going to spend an
Pero también nos pueden dar
inordinate
informaciones
amount of
sobre
time looking for
incidencias,
parking
obras
spaces,
o cualquier
or they are
otra
going to
cuestión.
be
Eso,
delayed
de
by
alguna
construction
forma,
roadworks,
mejora la
or they're going to be
experiencia de
delayed
los
by traffic
ciudadanos
jams
en
or
los vehículos.
accidents. And so all
Y
of
por
the
último,
technology
y no
that
lo
we
quiero
have at our
dejar,
disposal
la
is going to allow us to
conectividad
avoid all
con
of
el mundo
those
y con Europa
barriers
principalmente.
to efficient
¿Y eso cómo
transport.
se hace?
And working together with our EU
Impulsando un espacio
neighbors,
único
we're going
europeo
to create
que de
a
alguna
single
manera
space,
mejore
a
la conectividad
single
de los
EU
mercados.
space for
Y ya sé que
mobility
aquí a lo mejor es
and a
más,
transportation
relativo
market.
a los
Of course,
viajeros
very often
o
we're
los
talking about
pasajeros, no
transportation in
tanto a las
terms
mercancías,
of
pero también es importante.
passenger
Luego, las nuevas formas
transportation,
de
but we're also
movilidad que
referring to
vienen de alguna
the
manera
transport of
favorecidas
goods.
por la
And so we have to be able
tienen
to
que
implement digital
llevar a una
solutions
adaptación
so that
normativa
we
que tenga un
can
principio
put a
de
regulatory
neutralidad
framework in place so that we can
tecnológica, pero que
be
también
up to
se base
the moment,
en
we can be up
políticas
to date
de future
with the
proof.
technologies, so we can be
Es decir,
future-proof
adelantarse
in such
a
a
los
way that we can
acontecimientos.
even be ahead of our time in
Analizar
terms of putting
y debatir
regulations and policies
estos
in place
retos.
that take into account these technologies. And we're, in this way, helping citizens to reach our goals, and that's why we will be here in the years to come, starting from today at the first edition of Mo Forum Andalusia. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Carmen.
Thank you very much, Carmen. I like riding bicycles. You said that if the bicycle is not your vehicle of choice, but I, for one, vote for the bicycle. The bicycle, well, Andalusia is the driving force, pun intended, of this Forum Andalusia, Mo Forum Andalusia. The city councils of Seville and Malaga have worked together to make this today's event a reality. And not only the automobile industry, but all of the related industries, the automotive industry, the fuel industry, are all working together with these city councils and the entire region of Andalusia in reaching the objectives of this forum. I would like to ask the regional premier, Mr. Juan Manuel Moreno, to come to the podium and address us with a few words at this first edition of Mo Andalusia. Premier, you have the floor. Thank you, and a very good morning to everyone. Allow me to congratulate Jesus, a wonderful MC for this very first edition of Mo Forum Andalusia. The first editions are always the hardest, aren't they? They are the most challenging, I must say, getting things off the ground for the very first time. It's always a complicated task, but once you have taken that first step, there's no going back, is there? So the truth is, today is the first step. That first step towards one of the great mobility forums that will be held in Spain, but I foresee in the entire European context or in the world. It's going to start growing progressively, gradually, and step by step. It is going to become a reference forum for mobility. So I want to thank Jesus Alvarez for being here today. We were just talking about football a few minutes ago. 7 goals yesterday in our debut at the World Cup and we've got 7 more to go. So we have to pace ourselves. But we have started at an excellent manner this World Cup in Qatar, and we are highly pleased to see how well our national team is doing. I would also like to greet the Mayor of Seville, Mr. Antonio Muñez. He has very enthusiastically worked on this project over the past 3 years, and of course the Commissioner for Transport, Mobility and the Urban Agenda, and to the objectives at hand. Also allow me to greet Felipe Calderón, President of Mexico, well, former, not, but we refer to you as President because you were once President of Mexico, Mr. Felipe Calderón. A very warm welcome to you, a very highly appreciated country, one of our Hispanic colleagues, and Mexico is for us very dear to us in Spain. And so we are absolutely delighted to have you, Mr. Calderón, with us. I would also like to greet the president of the Real Automobile Club of Spain, Mr. Carmen Sanz. Carmelo, it is well worth our acknowledgement, all of the hard work that you have put into this event. And of course, the regional minister is also going to be with us for just a few more minutes because we have a full assembly today. I would also like to acknowledge the commissioner who is with us today, and he is also with us today. And he is, of course, a very important person, and the special commissioner. That was Ana Conte, and Carmen, I want to thank you for being here, and the special commissioner from the United Nations and the organizing committees, members of the RACE Foundation. I hope I'm not leaving anyone out. The Vice Chancellor for Presidency, the Director for Mobility, all those who have been responsible for making this first edition a success. And I'm not going to go on and on. There's so many people I could mention, but I was just saying today is the first step, and I think a very important and crucial first step towards something that has to be at the forefront of all of our social debates. It has to be in the center of debate in any country, city, or nation, and Seville is truly part of that debate, because for many years we have always wanted to be a center for international debate and discussion about the future of mobility, just as Malaga will be next year. The present and the future, which is truly one that affects many, many different industries, not only the automobile industry and the automotive industry, which are obviously central to our economy and to employment, especially in our country, which is one of the largest automobile producers in the world. So anything that has an effect on mobility is going to affect the automobile industry and is going to affect our employment sector and our social fabric. So in Andalusia, we have a very, very important automobile companies in our region. We also want to be significant in the area of technology and innovation in the area of mobility. So we are absolutely fully available and eager to participate in any initiative that advances the new mobility order in the world. So, as you all know, mobility is undergoing huge transformations, perhaps more so than any other time in history, and it's unstoppable and irreversible. These changes that I've just referred to, the change from fossil fuels to net zero emissions. Fossil fuels are going to become a thing of the past. There is no future in the use of fossil fuels, and the present and the very near future are the renewables and clean energy sources. But what is it that we must do to cross that bridge in the safest way possible, as quick as possible, and to the highest benefit of all, as we are willing to do here in Andalusia? Well, the first thing we must do is know exactly what the industry needs to do and how advances can be made towards new logistic systems can be put in place, new transportation systems for the transport of goods can be overhauled. And of course, for the entire industry, it's important to recognize that there are a new set of customs and habits that our citizens are taking up, and increasingly social action is oftentimes just as important or more than the industrial action. Citizens are now demanding, not only just requesting, they are demanding not only open spaces, park areas, green areas, areas that are breathable, that are clean and family-friendly. And we need to make sure that this new scenario that citizens are demanding requires a capacity on our behalf to become more flexible in terms of what kind of transport is made available to citizens in these open areas, with things such as public transport, bike lanes, things that have changed so dramatically since I was a youngster. And now we need to ensure that the traffic that has multiplied exponentially in our cities now is brought under control. We need to make sure that all of the public transportation systems, the high-speed train, the multimodal means of transport have to become much more of the norm. And this has happened almost overnight. That is, in such a short period of time, we've been able to provide these services to citizens, and we have to continue to do so. Transformation has to be undertaken. Changes have to be made, and changes are being made in the philosophies, in the ways we move about, in the ways we make our decisions about transportation in such a short period of time that it's almost unthinkable. It would have been unthinkable that 10 years ago we would be where we are today, that we are fully immersed in a system of transition. It has to be sensible, realistic, and it has to be pragmatic. And some of the opportunities that we are now faced with have to be taken up, because now is the time for more sustainable mobility to become a day-to-day reality. So together we must make the highest and most earnest effort to be up to the task. And for that reason, in Andalusia, we have the green revolution underway, what we call the green revolution, the use of renewable energies. The environmental dimension has to permeate every single facet of our policy-making process and of our everyday lives. This is the basis not only of our goals, but that is the underpinning foundations of the goals that we have set for ourselves. But we put so many programs in place. It was just mentioned, we have a tram system in the Bay of Cadiz. We have the metro of Seville being enlarged, and many of the transportation systems in Malaga are also under a significant modernization and transformation efforts. So these are costly programs, but they are absolutely necessary if transportation in our urban and metropolitan areas are going to become more efficient and sustainable. And I'm fully convinced that all of the political willingness that is needed is going to be there so that they are indeed reached. So at the end of the day, I think if we make the right decisions and together we make sure that today's decisions are beneficial for the future, this is going to be crucial for the policy makers of today to make sure that the design of our economy is going to affect citizens in their everyday lives. Mobility has to be done the right way. It has to be well managed, and it has to be sustainable. And that's why we are so preoccupied with this new mobility order. We're trying to unify criteria and ensure that carbon neutral emissions are ensured, and that all of the new technologies and new sustainable solutions are taken up and adopted by everyone in a clear show of willingness. We need to catch up because we are somewhat behind many other areas of the world, and I think Andalusia needs to be critical of itself in that sense, because when you travel around other places in the world, you can see that they have advanced much more quickly and better than we have. And so that's probably what we have to assume as our responsibility over the next 4 years in Andalusia and throughout Spain as a whole, that we have a challenge ahead of us that we must meet. The use of electric vehicles, charging stations which are almost inexistent. I could go on, but I don't want to draw out my initial address too much longer. I just want to say that we all are faced with enormous challenges, and they are transcendental in nature. It's very inspiring, and it's something I'm very enthusiastic about, to see how the present and the future of mobility is going to take shape over the coming years. And that's the challenge that you as experts have, and that's the challenge that you as with the solvency and expertise and know-how that you have at your disposal are going to shed light on some of the most adequate solutions and work together in advancing towards that challenge of sustainable, clean mobility, and be an instrument for transportation to make our societies fairer, more sustainable, and more efficient. And that's why Andalusia feels that this forum is so important. It is an honor for me to inaugurate this forum, and I'm fully convinced that it's going to be successful over the coming years. The two-day event in this first edition is full of speakers who have excellent criteria and expertise behind them, and I'm also very sure that Seville is the right place to do this, because being in Seville is in some ways a guarantee of success. As the capital city of Andalusia, it's a pool of talent. It's a pool of innovation, and it's a wonderful place to be. The climate, the gastronomy, and the openness and welcoming nature of our society is fully at your disposal. Please enjoy your stay in Seville. We are with you in your efforts to be at the service of the world's society in mobility, making it more sustainable, efficient, and why not, happier future for all. Thank you very much. Thank you, President of the region of Andalusia, Mr. Juan Manuel Moreno. This is off. We are off and running. The Mo Forum Andalusia is now underway. Thank you, Carmen, Juanma Moreno, Mayor Antonio Muñez, and the Commissioner for Transports, Carmen. I'm very, very grateful for your interventions and presentations in this inaugural opening ceremony of Mo Forum Andalusia. We'll be right back.